Good evening, everyone. Up first, we have our ambulance service monthly report.
Good evening, Matt Wagner, Deputy Chief for Tower Direct. You should have a paper copy in front of you. For the service, 949 total calls for January with 194 in Cumru Township. 73 of them were transported. 62 ALS medical, 34 BLS medical, 20 BLS trauma, 11 unknown MBA, 9 ALS trauma, 6 class 4 mental, 5 cardiac respiratory arrest, 4 unconscious, 4 ILS medical, and 4 structure fires. 79% were transported to Reading, 18% to St. Joe's, with an average response 1 minute and 15 seconds out the door and 8 minutes and 44 seconds until arrival on scene. Any questions I can answer for you? Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Moving on, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for January 5th org meeting and January 20th regular meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second. All in favor of approving the minutes for the January 5th and January 20th meetings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying no. All right, moving on, the tax collector. Do you have anything to? Oh, you're up.
Yeah, Betsy couldn't be here tonight, so she asked me to take this item for her. If you remember a couple of meetings ago, she presented to the board a request to allow the taxpayers to pay their county and township taxes via a county website through an online system. And the board, I think, was okay with that, but they wanted me to review the contract between the county and the Allpaid is the company that would be processing it, in order to make sure there was security for the taxpayers and compliance with all the state and federal regulations regarding online banking and transactions. I did that. The contract looks good to me. There are security and compliance mechanisms in the contract. So I'm fine with the contract the way it is. If the board wants to move forward with her request to allow this, we would need to adopt a resolution. And I do have a form of the resolution that I can provide to Patty to fit out to Cumru Township, and we can get that approved.
I would move to adopt the resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed by saying no. Okay, moving on. Civil Service Commission and Planning Commission. We have for the Civil Service Commission, do I hear a motion to accept the resignation of Michael Fix effective January 28th of this year?
I move to accept the resignation.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by saying no. Okay. Next, for Civil Service Commission, we have consideration of an alternate member, Todd Dietrich, to fill in the vacancy of the permanent member. Is there any questions? Or do I hear a motion to appoint Todd Dietrich to be a permanent member?
I'll make the motion for Todd Dietrich to be a permanent member.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Finally, we have just, I guess, an announcement that there is now a vacancy for an alternate member. Or Patty, or does that make it 2 with just that one now with Todd moving into the permanent position? Okay. Moving on to the Planning Commission. First, do I hear a motion to accept the resignation of Alan Gibson effective February 1st of this year?
I'll make the motion for accepting Alan Gibson's resignation.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying no. Okay, next we have consideration of Deborah Geiger to fill the vacancy for permanent member. And then we have consideration of Eric Ermold to fill the vacancy for an alternate member. And then consider authorizing our planning secretary to send a 15-day notice of intent to remove two inactive alternate members with a vote at next month's meeting. So I just wanted to run through those
Most of
next.
these people are here if you wanted to hear.
Yeah,
them.
okay. I guess before we invite them up, is there any comment or questions or discussion? Okay, do we want to start with Deborah? Miss Geiger?
Hi, good evening. I'm Deborah Geiger. I'm a lifetime member of Cumru. I went to Governor Mifflin High School. I graduated from Alvernia University. I served on active duty in the United States Army Military Police Corps for 30 years. I retired from the service, and I'm currently working for Department of Defense in Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm pending retirement from that position.
Thank you. Mr. Ermold, would you like to say a few words? Oh, sorry about that. We could bring the mic over to you if that works better.
Good evening. My name is Eric Ermold, longtime resident of Cumru Township. Currently retired as a probation and parole officer for 35 years. Currently, now, not while I'm injured, is a substitute teacher in the Governor Mifflin and Muhlenberg School District, track and field official, and that's all I really have. It's just been a long couple of weeks.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any questions? Any questions?
I don't think so. Any deliberation by the board? Well, that being said, do I hear a motion to appoint Deborah Geiger as the permanent member to fill the vacancy on the planning commission?
I move to appoint Deborah Geiger to fill the vacancy for the permanent member.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying no. Next up, do I hear a motion to appoint Eric Ermold to fill the vacancy for the alternate member?
I'll make the motion for Eric to fill the alternate position.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying no. All right, last for the planning commission, consideration for authorizing the planning secretary to send the notice of intent to remove the two inactive alternate members. Any questions or deliberation here? Okay, do I hear a motion to authorize the planning secretary to send a 15-day notice of intent to remove the two inactive alternate members with a vote for next month's meeting?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by saying no. All right, moving on. We have public comment. We didn't have anybody right ahead, correct?
Not
Okay.
ahead.
Mr. Keffer.
We on? Okay. Well, I'd like to talk about data centers this evening, since I've had a little bit of experience in that area. I did the Berks County Computer Center, the Berks County 911 Emergency Call Center, and I also did the Pipeline Control Center for Sunoco Pipeline, which covers most of the East Coast. I have a number of concerns about a data center going into Cumru Township. Aside from the fact that, depending upon the exact size of it, it will consume an enormous amount of electricity. But what people don't realize is all the ancillary equipment that goes along with this. For example, there's equipment that provides what's called clean power to a computer system. That in itself takes quite a bit of power. There is HVAC systems which control the heat that is given off from a computer system. I've actually been in a building in Baltimore that heated its entire building with the residual heat from the computers. So you can imagine on a large scale computer building, how much heat is involved with this particular system. What's also concerning is that the heat dries the air out within the building. This in itself creates static electricity. That's a problem that's addressed by another piece of equipment to control the humidity within the building. To make matters worse, if there is a fire in a computer center, there are very toxic fumes which are given off. Of particular concern is lead and mercury from various computer components, and also the system that controls a potential fire. Most often it's done with halon. Halon has been shown to create a number of different problems. It doesn't take the oxygen out of the air, but it tends to suppress it, I guess would be the best description. This provides or makes for a very dangerous situation, I should say, for people working within the computer center and also firefighters who have to come in and put out a fire. I know we've been looking at some various additions to the zoning ordinance for a computer center. I've also looked at one from Northampton County, which was very, very good. But my real concern with respect to a data center is the fire situation. I'd really like you to talk to the fire chief. He may give you some additional information on this. I've already been to the State Fire Training Center in Lewistown. They have some excellent people there who can explain this much better than I can. And there's also a very good fire training center down in Conshohocken, which is run by Philadelphia Electric. They're even better than the people at the State Fire Training Center. If you have some real doubts about how serious this might be, please get the fire chief to get an old laptop computer, take it down to the Berks Fire Training site. And that's another one of my projects too. I happen to do the entire, all the burn building, the fire pits, drafting center, smoke maze, and a number of other things at the fire training center. But get them to take an old laptop that you're just going to get rid of, put it in a burn pit and burn it. You would be surprised at even a small item like that, the fumes and the toxic fumes that it gives off. It is very dangerous. I have some very serious concerns about this as a specific overlay district onto many of the other districts that we have in our zoning ordinance. I really think it should be isolated at some particular less hazardous area. And that's really my concern.
Okay. Can I jump in here? So there's a couple different layers to what you were saying there, Rich, and thanks. I listened to the planning commission back, so I kind of pre-prepared a little bit for you. So a couple things to talk about here. One, this is an overlay that's specific towards the Titus Station area. Kind of to your point, when you have to kind of look at this and figure out, well, if you had to pick somewhere, because we can't legally say you're not allowed to build data centers in Cumru Township, if you had to pick somewhere for this overlay to be and kind of direct it, if you will, that's the area we want to direct it to. You know the background of the situation with the warehouse, and people were sniffing around for a data center up there and stuff like that. That's part of the reason we started these discussions. If we don't put ordinances like this in place, it's not a total free for all, but we don't have all the protections in place that we would get via the ordinance. That's what we're really trying to accomplish here. We're not necessarily seeking a data center per se. We're just trying to protect the township in the event that somebody does come forward with a plan one day. And also in the ordinance, as it relates to fire, there's a number of different safety procedures that they have to come forth with and have reviewed by the fire chief, should somebody decide to come in and submit a plan. So I know that doesn't necessarily fully address everything what you said or what your concerns are. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there's steps that are in there that anyone that would try to build would have to kind of go through and satisfy our concerns before they could actually move forward on something.
Well, I agree, and it's just something that doesn't usually come up in terms of a zoning ordinance or there just aren't that many of those.
It's brand
things
new,
around.
right? So
Right.
like, I mean,
Right.
when we were looking at this, I think Kelsey, what'd you find? 8 of them or something like that across Pennsylvania? 6 of them? Yeah, so there's not many. And that's why we had to elicit the help of Dave Robinson, the local expert. We did talk to him a little bit about the halon. The feedback he gave to me was that they don't necessarily use halon all that frequently anymore. I'm not the person to discuss this. I'm just kind of relaying his feedback. I don't know. Maybe Andy knows more about it with the computer background. It doesn't look like he does. But you know, long story short is like we want to try and be prepared and proactive with this as opposed to being reactive and having somebody just show up with a plan one day, basically.
I appreciate that, and I agree with that also. Northampton County has a township that has an excellent ordinance with regard to data centers. You might want to take a look at that. But
I think we did take that, right?
Yeah, that was an ordinance that Barb Dietrich from the Planning Commission sent me, and I did forward it to the commissioners as well as Steve Hoffman, the engineer who's been assisting us with preparing the ordinance and getting all the technical stuff in there. So he's seen it, yeah.
Am I mistaken? I thought that there were 2 areas that were put out for possible AIs. Didn't you say there was another one up 222 area in the back there?
No, I don't think so. The only one that was I'll call it under discussion, if you will, was at the Flying Hills warehouse site.
Yeah, just
if you would, get the fire chief to take you to the fire training site and light a small laptop computer on fire. You would be surprised how much fumes it gives off. It's surprising.
Maybe we'll do that after the meeting, like if you want to stick around.
Okay. No, thank you very much.
And I just wanted to echo what Greg said too. That part of this conversation started sometime last year. Greg and I were talking. As many folks might be aware, there's an AI boom, and with that AI boom comes never-ending appetite for compute and storage. And what that means is non-industry parlance is these data centers. And so a big part of why we were starting to talk about this is like Greg said, is if that day comes where somebody comes and wants to present a plan, we want to be able to steer that plan in the right direction, in a direction that we think makes sense for the township and not just be beholden to the whims of whatever developer that comes along. So it's not an open invite to any data center developer that's out there. It's more just like making sure we have our ducks in a row on our end proactively, should that day come. Okay, anything else on that? Cool. Moving on to economic development. You want to kick us off, Greg?
Sure. So there's a number of different things here. So I guess we'll start off right at data centers, actually, since we were just talking about it. So over the past, I don't know, a week or 2 or 3 or whatever it's been, Kelsey and Steve and I have been talking a little bit about the data center ordinance. And in that ordinance, it talks about independent power sources. So to Rich's point earlier, if somebody wants to come along and build a data center, these things use lots and lots of power. So some of them are going around and building the one out in Harrisburg, for example, they're building their own nuclear reactor as part of it. It's a small nuclear, it's called an SMR, a small modular reactor that they're building to power these things. And that's just an example. This is happening across the country right now. So in our ordinance, we have references towards independent power production that effectively, that needs to be considered as a separate use the way it's written. So what I asked Kelsey a little while ago, I said, well, what does our power production ordinance look like? Thinking back to 2014, we had a coal-fired power plant here in Cumru Township at the Titus station. kind of thought, well, we must have something in place. And I think the short version is maybe not. So here's where I'll throw it over to Kelsey, because I think she has some ideas as to how we could potentially address this.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Greg and I did discuss this particular section of the data center ordinance regarding the power supply. And the way that it's written now kind of suggests that if they're going to have a system capable of generating a certain amount of power, it's not considered part of the actual data center. It's considered a separate use, which would then mean it would have to fall under what our definition of like a private utility is for that particular power supply. And I don't think that our zoning ordinance, the way it's written, is specific enough to cover, I think, your concerns about what the requirements should be for that type of power generation private utility. So Steve and I are gonna have to go back and forth and try to figure out how we can create regulations that deal with the concerns that you have. A lot of this is really technical stuff that is sort of out of my wheelhouse. I'm just the lawyer. So I am gonna have to work with Steve and figure out what we can do to try to deal with your concerns, but also not overdo it and complicate it too much so that we're having different power supply ordinances for every different type of use that might come into the township.
And just to kind of expand upon what Kelsey's saying here, my concerns were around the environmental impact of certain types of power production, where if we had to put this together, I would personally prefer to steer away from some of the, I'll call it dirtier type stuff, and go more towards the cleaner end of the spectrum, because I'm not really looking to breathe smog all day when I walk outside of my house here. So that's kind of what my concern was.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and I think I explained this, you can't really dictate what kind of power someone uses. You can't say, well, you can't use coal here, and it's legally if they're within their right to use whatever power supply makes sense for their use. It's just regulating it so that we're cutting down on some of the negative effects.
Just wanted to loop in here to comment on something Mr. Keffer just said a moment ago about clean power. I think what you're alluding to there isn't what Mr. Miller is talking about. And I just to clarify that a bit, when we talk about these computer systems and needing clean power and powering those systems, what we're talking about is these systems need a steady and consistent supply of power. And if we look at the way an electrical wave comes in, these systems need it to be consistent and smooth, and that's a clean supply of energy. I bring this up because when it comes to utilities, these systems, like Mr. Keffer said, these data centers have such an unfathomable impact on the local power utility that they disrupt the clean energy to the surrounding area. So for those who've been around, maybe at a previous meeting, I think I alluded to this, there is distortion that occurs and has a negative impact on the lifespan of electronics in the surrounding area because of the effect on the clean energy supply. So if your refrigerator, just like any other electrical system, expects to also get a smooth energy supply, and then all of a sudden it's spiky and bursty, that has a negative detrimental effect on the lifespan of this electronic equipment. It goes for computers, all sorts of electronics are negatively impacted by these sorts of things. So anyway, I just wanted to sort of loop back to the point you made earlier. I think it's very important that we consider, I think this is great that we're having that discussion because it's important to consider the impacts to the utility, how power is supplied. And I just wanted to sort of share that to maybe help the conversation.
So it sounds like maybe we should just give you an action item and let you reconnect with Steve and circle back.
Yeah, and I do have some ideas to try to revise it to keep the power supply requirements sort of general with some oversight by engineers and consultants to not disrupt or affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, but also make sure it's meeting, the power supply is meeting state and federal regulations for that utility and things like that. So I think there's language that we could create that doesn't overcomplicate it, but also ensures that we have some oversight.
One last thought on this, just before we move on. I want to just really hammer home how unfathomable the demands of these things are. These gigawatt data centers that are being presented at gigawatt, petawatt, whatever, that means nothing to 99.9% of people. We're talking about the energy consumption of a city the size of Philadelphia in one data center. That's the energy consumption we're talking about. So these things are, Mr. Keffer is not exaggerating. It is almost unfathomable the amount of power these things consume. They're incredible systems, but things we need to take very seriously if they're going to be coming into our neck of the woods. So back to you, Greg.
Yeah, does anybody else have anything they want to add before I move along? Okay, so and this is kind of an update for both of these, for A and B, the TND and the data center. So they both were presented to the Planning Commission at their February meeting. So they're now digesting it, and they'll come back for feedback on both of these.
Oh, I did want to mention, I got an email this afternoon from Barb Dietrich from the Planning Commission with a bunch of suggestions with respect to the data center ordinance. So that's another email that I'd like to take a look at and read through and look at her suggestions and see if we can incorporate those into a new revision as well.
Yeah, that's great. And on top of that, the County Planning Commission also has the data center ordinance right now too. So they are also giving feedback. They do not have the TND one yet. But if I jump over to TND, are we looking like we're on track to get feedback on both of these within 30 days?
The TND ordinance is going to be a little tougher. There was a lot of comments from the engineer, from Steve, regarding the items and the provisions in the TND ordinance. He had told me when I spoke to him last, which was late last week, that from the response to his comments, he has more comments. So I think that ordinance is going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more finesse to get us to a point where we're ready to send it for review.
Do we know when we'll get something back? Like,
I don't know. I didn't pressure Steve for a timeline, but we can certainly reach out to him tomorrow and get an answer from him.
okay, perfect.
While you come up, I just wanted to point out for everyone, the TND sorry, it's on there if you don't have a copy of the minutes. It's traditional neighborhood development. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Again, on behalf of the Planning Commission, what we received, I did take a look at, not as thoroughly as I did with the data center, but it's extremely hard in the form that it's in for us to even look at it, much less be able to really give any kind of review or input. So I think as far as the Planning Commission, and particularly the fact that we have some new members, we need a little bit more time before we do that formal 30-day review period. It needs to be cleaned up quite a bit yet, and before we can make heads or tails out of it. So
Yeah, thank you for the update. Any other questions from anyone on TND? All right, the Brownsfield grant, that's a really simple one. That grant was submitted by Delta at the end of January. That is a EPA grant, so it's a federal level grant. I did reach out to Representative Houlihan, and she has provided a letter of support for that grant for us. So, fingers crossed, hopefully we'll get that money. It's just to refresh everyone's memory, that's a $500,000 grant to clean up some of the either the Titus Station lots or the 222 corridor for any kind of potential contaminations or things like that that is in those areas.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments on the Delta plan? You got anything on the recreation grant?
Yes, so when we were in the meeting with Peter and Patty and Delta at the end of January, we're talking about the recreation grants that they're going to start applying for. I believe it's in May, if I remember correctly. And I think it was Patty that actually brought up the point about potentially utilizing some of the grant funding for the Montrose playground and kind of updating of that. I guess that equipment's kind of old, and it could use a refresh. So what Delta had said effectively is we need an estimate if you want to submit a grant for that. So what we would need then is for the board to discuss that and determine if we want to potentially get that estimate. And then if we get the estimate, do we want to potentially submit for a grant to get that playground equipment in Montrose replaced?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. I think we should at least get an estimate, find out what it
Yeah.
costs.
See what the, amount it is. Does it line up with what the grant would provide? Would we have to kick in some portion of that?
Yeah, that's what we need to find out.
Do we need a motion to?
Well, I guess I had one more question is, who do we go to get an estimate on something like that too? Is that something that Joe does, or is that somebody else?
I would suggest you could reach out to some vendors who supply playground equipment. Excuse me. A lot of them can give you estimates, and then you can add on installation cost or mark it up appropriately to cover, might be a 30 or 40% markup for the installation. But I know in other municipalities I deal with, a lot of times they just reach out directly to the vendors, and they can come out and take a look at the equipment and provide you some costs that are, good enough to submit for a grant application and so forth. I would strongly suggest that to do that. Then you're getting the cost directly from the vendors themselves.
Okay, is there somebody that knows who those people are? I see Peter. You can find it. All right, we'll throw an action. And Kelsey kind of whispered to me we should get probably 3 of them, different quotes. Hopefully between everybody we can find 3. Yeah. If nothing else on that one, next to it would be the community funding grant. So community funding grant is it's a program run by the federal government. This is actually a part of their appropriations plan, where every one of the representatives across the entire country gets allocated a certain number of slots, effectively, not necessarily a certain amount of dollars, but they get to pick a certain number of slots where they get to submit these slots. And as part of the appropriation project, they get funding for them. So Representative Houlihan has approximately 15 that she gets. And those projects can be somewhat substantial. The Kenhurst Interceptor project that we're talking about here, Peter, I think we're talking about, what, 7 million? Yeah, it's about $7 million. So that's a pretty substantial amount of money. So when I had some conversations with some of the folks from her office, I kind of threw that out there, just seeing what kind of money we could get towards this. It's not out of the question we could get the full $7 million for this. But what we do effectively is submit it in. It gets reviewed by her team. There's actually a committee that reviews all of her different slots and figures out who's going to get picked. Keep in mind, this is across all of Chester County and all of Southern Berks. So it is somewhat competitive. If you're wondering how many they typically get, last year they got about 60 for the 15 slots. So it's not a guarantee that you'll get this, but if you do get it, it can be pretty substantial. So the question to the board is twofold. One, do we want to consider submitting for the Kenhurst Interceptor project for this grant? And then if we want that to be the project, are we okay with having Delta move forward when this window pops open? I didn't mention the window could literally pop open at any day. It usually comes up sometime in either late February or early March, and you have a week to submit your application.
Well, I'm thinking we should jump on that.
Is there any alternative to that project specifically that we're aware of that would be worthwhile?
Yeah, and it's a good question that you bring up, because one of the pieces of advice I got from her office is that you want it to be a substantial project. Submitting $50,000 for whatever is not something that's necessarily going to move the needle. She wants to submit things that are larger, that impact a lot of folks and can bring some real positive to the community. I know Peter and I talked about this a little bit, like in terms of economic development, this is something that could really help our community with economic development. That's correct. And what Peter was just saying is it opens up the ability for us to serve a lot of the areas that don't have proper access. I'll kind of summarize what he said. So this does tick the boxes. I don't know another project that is of this magnitude that we have, to answer your question.
Yeah, I didn't expect there to be one. I just figured I'd throw it out there. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea to submit the project.
And probably something.
For filing for this.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Sometimes there is. It's usually pretty nominal when there is. I think the one we did was like $500 or something like that. So I don't know that we're going to break the bank in terms of a fee if there is one, in fact. But what I did forget to add is that the way that it works in terms of the decisioning process is that in September, if they form a budget as they're supposed to, which anyone that's followed the news is, that's a questionable thing. But should they actually agree to a budget in September, it would then get decided and awarded somewhere in that general time frame, and the funds would become available in January of 27. So that's what we'd be talking about timeline here. Go ahead, Glenn. Do you want to handle that one?
Wasn't prepared, but happy to give an overview of it. By the way, I'm Jeff Skinner with Atlas Engineers, the sewer engineer. Approximately 5 years ago, the interceptor that Cumru shares with Kenhorse became a problem and was developing overflows. They were significant enough that they were noticed in and along Woodcrest Drive. It was coming out, sewage was coming out in the streets, and DEP got involved and stopped all additional connections to this interceptor, which is approximately 1,600 connections from Cumru Township themselves. And they stopped all connections, called a moratorium, and Cumru and Kenhorse had to come together and fix the interceptor so that the overflows were stopped. And we essentially did that in somewhat of a Band-Aid situation and have been approved by DEP to add more connections to this system. But this system is overwhelmed by sewage flows and I&I inflow and infiltration, so that there could be further problems down the road should either Kenhorse or Cumru attempt to put any large developments, or whether residential or industrial, on this system. So Atlas was directed to look at either replacing the existing interceptor or find a way of increasing flows by adding to it. And we had initially looked at replacing the interceptor and found that it was very expensive. This was years ago, but I've started looking at the updating costs of that. Presently, the interceptor runs down along Angelica Creek and connects into Reading, right along the railroad tracks at, I forget the name of the road right now, Route 10. And to do that replacement was going to be roughly $10 million, give or take back then. Plenty of difficult permits to obtain because of where this interceptor is presently. So review with the previous administration, we discussed separating Cumru from Kenhorst and providing a new connection for Cumru to have the sewage flow towards the Reading treatment plant, which is where the interceptor goes to directly right now. And this would involve additional pump stations being installed and disconnecting where Cumru connects into this interceptor and redirects it to a new pipe that would be installed that would go directly to the Reading treatment plant. This would be all under the control of Cumru. It would not involve Kenhorst. We'd be separating ourselves. And right now, Cumru and Kenhorst are in agreement on I believe it was 1959 agreement that I sent over that was controlling who has access to this interceptor we're presently using. So back then, the agreement was pretty much split between Cumru and Kenhorst. But over the years, with the development, Cumru has been shouldering the much more of the cost of operating this system than Kenhorst. And the previous board determined that separation was a very viable option. You know, even though at the cost of $7 million, there may be savings down the road, as well as the allowance of opening up more development areas on that system. So that's essentially where we are now. I met with the interim manager, and we're discussing looking at other options as well that might be beneficial, but at a reduced cost. We're still coming up with that plans, and at some point I would like to sit down with the manager to discuss it, and then maybe give another presentation to the board of all the different options and costs associated, and then we can see where it leads. So
I was going to ask, if you could elaborate a little bit. One of the things I had heard a number of times was specifically that I&I aspect of it, and that it was causing that shouldering of the burden on Cumru Township that we couldn't really do anything about. Could you sort of fill in the gap there?
I didn't really look into the agreement that was the prior manager was involved in that, but right now there is a meter station that the flows go through, and based on that meter is what's charged Cumru Township. Evidently, Kenhorst is only billed on a per connection basis, and with no real additional costs required due to I&I inflow. There is a large I&I increase during rain events. It's probably not mostly from this system, but the expansive system that drains to it. All the minor pipes in the streets, the residential connections, laterals, anybody who has a sump pump connected to the system or downspouts, all this contributes to I&I. And it's very difficult to police, but DEP is really trying to crack down on the I&I issues, because the sewer plants are just overwhelmed and are unable to treat all the flows during rain events. So Cumru Township has been shouldering the costs for those increased flows during I&Is more so than Kenhorst. So there is savings to be had in that regard.
Thank you for jogging my memory. And I just wanted to again, just to close the loop there for you, Glenn. So for those who aren't aware, I&I is, we're talking about a sewer, like wastewater pipe, for lack of a better word. When we have massive rain events, these old pipes get lots of rain that goes into them. when Kenhurst, by no fault of their own, is being billed at a per connection into this sewer rate, that's fine for them, but Cumru, correct me if I'm wrong, is not billed that way. We pay per gallon or per metric, however they measure the flow out of this thing into the sewage treatment facility. That's what we pay for. And so that accounts for all infiltration and I into the system in Kenhurst and everywhere else that Mr. Skinner is alluding to. So I think I just wanted to really get to the heart of your question and answer sort of what we're talking about here.
If the system can't handle it, it usually leaks out at manhole locations, which was happening at Woodcrest Boulevard, and we had actual sewage coming out of the manholes and running down the streets. And for the residents along that street, it was very difficult situation to deal with. And that's when DEP said, yeah, you've got to get this under control. We cannot allow any more connections. And a moratorium, as you can imagine, can shut down any development possibilities along the system. And there's a real problem there. But the increased flow is just an overburden for sewer plants that aren't designed to handle it as well. So they end up discharging outflows from the plant with higher concentrations of allowable pollutants, and it just creates more and more of an issue. So systems are aging. They're 50, 60, 70 years old, and they were not designed to handle these flows or last this long. And they're all in need of an upgrade, just as what we're discussing with the Ardmore and Frederick project, which we'll talk about later. Is we're going to dig up the old clay pipes that leak and install new plastic pipes with gasketed fittings that will seal up and will last 100 years and cut down on the I&I immensely.
Yeah, and to build on Andy's point, I don't want to give the wrong figure, but I think the figure that we're paying is quite sizable in comparison to Kenhurst. I have a close to seven-figure figure in my head that once again, I don't want to make misstatements, but I kind of remember that number. You're shaking your head.
I believe so too. Yeah, that's what I was told. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah, we're not talking about like 5 or 10 grand here. Like we're talking about 7 figures. So even though this is a substantial cost up front, you will save a lot of money.
$7,000, did you say? Did you say the cost was $7,000?
7 million.
I mean, 7
Yes.
million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the grant would be
our lab-
4 million.
No, the grant would be the entire amount potentially.
Oh,
Yeah, it gets so what happens is once she recommends her stuff, it goes in front of a committee in the federal government. They won't pull her projects, but they could potentially lower some of the funding on them. Doesn't mean they will. Quite often they'll go and pay the whole thing. So we could very well get this entire amount should we be picked as one of her projects. But if you don't put your name in the hat, you don't get picked.
who does the grant writing?
Delta does that for us.
One thing I might add though is you really can't do nothing. Sometimes when you do these analysis, you have a do nothing option that cannot continue with the sewer system. It's going to fail completely. One of these days, you're going to have sewage out in the stream. DEP is going to shut everything down again. So something's got to be done. And the whole process here is to put your money where it best will suit Cumru Township.
Thank you for the impromptu education.
No problem.
Appreciate it. I guess, do I hear a motion to,
Well, maybe do we need a motion for this kind of thing?
I would have a motion just to make sure that, we're, especially if it has a cost associated with it.
Okay,
So the whole board's on board.
okay.
Do I hear a motion to authorize application for the community funding grant?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying yay, yay. Aye.
Aye.
Yes, sorry, and brain farts. Aye as well. All opposed by saying no. Okay, moving on. Lieutenant Besner, got a special guest tonight. What do you got for us?
Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Michael Besner with the Police Department. Chief Winchester is out of town. He'll be back in the office tomorrow if you need him specifically. You do have our monthly report and our new KPI report. I am here. I can answer any questions that you may have tonight. And
Yeah.
also, I just wanted to.
I'm sorry to
thank-
interrupt you, but could we put that up and we'll kind of run the public through? Could we put the KPI report up on the projector? Could we email it over, Tanya, or something like that, maybe? Should we email it to you, Mike? Does that make it easier?
While we get that going, Lieutenant, do you have anything, Civil Service Commission update?
No, Commissioner, I believe you covered that at the beginning of the meeting. Yeah, there you go. I was just going to thank the liaisons for coming to the police department. We met with them the past month. And all the commissioners for your time and your dedication to the township and the departments. So thank you.
The civil service update is that they did get two sergeants off that list and they're already in that role and fulfilling that role. That's it.
That's my mistake. Yes. I thought it was about the Civil Service Commission, but yes, they did authorize two sergeants and they promoted Sergeant Gupta and Sergeant Bentz. They started on February 9th and they're working midnight shift and 3 to 1 shift. And so far they're doing a great job. So expect them to do great. Thank you.
So, all right.
Also, while they're working on this, there is something I wanted to add here. So I'm sure folks probably heard about the protests that happened down at the middle school and the high school over the past, I'll call it week or so. I wanted to thank Chief Winchester and his team. I knew Lieutenant Besner was involved in this for the first one. There wasn't the level of awareness that we could kind of be proactive, but for the second one there was. So for the second one, the chief and his team worked together with Shillington and with the high school safe schools team to create a plan to make sure that there was adequate security for any potential event that happened there. And I think they did a really good job. It was something that could have been a very combustible event had we maybe not planned for it. But with their assistance, it went off probably about as well as it could have, I guess. So I just wanted to extend the thanks for the team for getting on top of that and keeping everybody involved, not just the children, but the other folks that were involved with that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm just going to comment because we have a minute. One thing that I think really disturbed me with that whole thing, irrespective of what side of the issues you're on, I think nobody should be videotaping children. I don't care if and publishing videos of children on social media for public consumption, I think is reprehensible. And some of that was happening. And I just want to comment personally to say that anybody who does that is a scumbag, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I think it does walk a fine line of legality, and I won't get into that whole thing. But there is, you're dipping your toes into waters you probably don't want to dip your toes into.
I'm not a lawyer, but you're a scumbag if you do that.
Yeah, go ahead, go.
Please, you put a lot of good things about it, but you can't hear what you say. So I guess you just can't get anything in habit, but we really like to hear what your comments are. Thanks.
Did we want to perhaps at least get the conversation started about the attendance for the police liaisons at the Governor Mifflin School District?
That's what I was just saying to Kelsey, but yeah, Tanya's one of the liaisons. She's kind of occupied right now. I mean, I guess we could go into fire if you wanted to go there.
Yeah, why not?
We'll come back.
Do we have anything for the monthly report?
No, the reports were on your tablets if anyone had any questions. No, I don't think there was anything out of, abnormal. We'll just carry through. We are winding down the project out here. So there's only one pay application. That's for Bolton, and the amount of $107,630.12. I guess we would need a motion for that.
Do I hear a motion to pay app Bolton Inc. for pay app 20?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I did have one kind of question or comment on the on the fire department data, and I don't know if this is possible to do, but I was interested in, I see the data for the period in question, but I wondered about like trend lines. How does this compare to year to date or year over year totals? I think that would be helpful to see.
That's
I don't know
a
if it's
great,
possible.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great
that's a
lead in for our
perfect segue.
KPI. Because Tanya has that in the KPI spreadsheet here. So can we put a pin in that for like a couple of minutes till we get that going?
Sure.
Yeah, so what Tanya and Mike are working to get up is an initiative to sort of unify how we look at the performance across all our departments. Tanya put this together initially for the police department. It's what we're calling key performance indicators. And it's just things like if Chief Winchester in this case is looking at the department, what does success look like? What does maybe we didn't do so well this month look like? And how do we measure that? And so Tanya put together some templates for Excel that create sort of graphs that give you exactly what you're asking for, trend lines, and instead of 1,000 lines in an Excel spreadsheet to try to like it makes my head hurt sometimes. You can see very, very quickly a lot of information just by looking at some of these graphs. I think they're about to have it up here in just a second. But yeah, I think we're in need of
Are the
that.
KPIs that we're talking about ones that are kind of curated, if you will, by, like talking to Chief Winchester or Chief Bean and getting from the professionals, what are they defining as success? Is that part of this?
That's exactly what happened. So, I'll get into the backstory here, but that's effectively what happened. We went to Chief Winchester and we said, Chief, when you look at your department and you're trying to determine whether things are going okay or conversely not okay, to Andy's point, what do you look at? And he came up with 5 different metrics that he looks at. And that's what you'll see on this report once we get it up. It looks like we're getting pretty close here.
I also wanted to point out too, it would be in collaboration probably between the liaisons of the department and the leader of the department to say like, how are we measuring this? Go ahead.
Do you want to steer up there, Tanya?
Statistician that I worked with that helped with this. So I got with Chief Winchester and he filled in the key performing indicators that they're tracking, and that's what's under the description there. You can see in here. And up or down, that if crime is up, that's not a good thing. You want crime to be down, you know. So and the warning threshold, let's say there's so many thefts that if it reaches that level, then that they need to be more aware of that. And what's the highest amount that they would want to be like, okay, we're really in the danger zone here. So so here, let's go to thefts. And this is data from 25. So we have January through December of 25. And then we're tracking, you can see on the graph, it's a simple graph, thefts, you want the arrow to be down. You know, down is the direction we want to go. So the red dotted line at the top, that's the absolute limit that they want to be at. If they're getting at that dashed yellow line, that's their kind of warning level. But below that is kind of their comfort zone. So you can see, you know, the tracking of what they've had for thefts from January 25 to December of 25. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. And look, repeat calls. So that's something else that they track. So there you go. There you want the direction is down again. The red line there at the dotted line is what their limit is. You can see there in August, they kind of got up to the kind of warning, you know, area there, but they dropped back down. And so you can track the trends on that.
And just to clarify on the repeat calls, because this was a question that I had, it doesn't, the metrics that Tanya's referring to for repeat calls, I think are 10 and 16, if I remember off the top of my head. 10 is where you start to get in the warning zone. 16 is where you breach the limit. That doesn't mean that you have 16 calls to the same place. That means that they track the number of repeat calls. So let's just say they went to Glenn's house 3 times. That would be 1. That wouldn't be 3. And then they went to Barb's house 4 times, that would be 2. So that's what they're counting here, is that the number of times that they had to go to multiple places or multiple calls at one place. They want to try and keep that number down. Did I do a good job explaining that, Lieutenant Besner? Or did I get that wrong?
No, pretty much. That's correct. I would say it's you don't want repeat calls at the same location. So in a township like Cumru, one of our most repeat calls are at Sheets. Right, it's at a major intersection. There's a lot of people there. No matter what happens, we're going to get a lot of calls there, or in a condensed neighborhood. And if I can just speak for one second, Commissioner, like we said, we're putting this together. It's like a quick snapshot. I do have 2 folders with me every month. No matter what, I will complete a lieutenant report for review by the chief. I supervise the operations of the patrol division, and there's at no time would any crime ever be acceptable in Cumru Township, but at least we can track it this way. And as far as the chief and the police department goes, it's problem-oriented policing, and we will put our resources and address the crime where it is needed. So as far as these thefts, it could be theft of any kind, but we will absolutely address that. I did want to thank Officer Kress, who's a field training officer with Officer Wade. On January 28th, they discovered 2 masked individuals walking in a Governor Mifflin neighborhood around the schools in the middle of the night. They did attempt to stop them, and then they were in a foot pursuit, and they apprehended them. And through the investigation, they were stealing from unlocked cars. So please lock your cars. They were stealing from unlocked cars, and they also had evidence that they were intending to steal a specific car, which the officer stopped that night. And so I just wanted to give them credit. And like I said, we'll continue to work on the KPI index, and I think it's a great way to explain to the commissioners and to the public that everything is on track. I don't want you to have any concern that we're not noticing these things and addressing them. But I did just want to close by saying, if I can, that it's my first meeting, and if you ever met Chief Winchester and he talked about me, he knows I don't like the attention. So he's going to get a lot of amusement out of this tomorrow.
Can I also just ask, I think this is a great start. It's exactly what I was thinking, but I wondered too, from like a standpoint of national averages, or like, where's Chief Winchester, or where do you get, you know, what you call to be your warning level in your thresholds? Is that some, you know, kind of just comfort level from the department standpoint, or is it some, you know, standards that you kind of go from?
It's standards for this department, this size department with, you know, about 16,000 people. And then we look at our average numbers, and we looked at basically the last 12 to 16 months of what the average is and how that can be explained accurately, depicted in this report, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
And certainly these can be custom to if they want to track something else, or something else that they want us to be aware of. And this is really, it can be a template for all the other departments of whatever they would want to track.
I just wanted to also reiterate something Lieutenant Besner said. This is not for the police, and they're going to be collecting much more fine-grained data than this, doing all of their detailed reporting. Like he said, this is for us and for you. I don't know about anyone else, but I don't know how to read a lot of these detailed crime reports and stuff. I can't do your job. This stuff helps me, and I think it helps a lot of people make sense of all of this data and be able to just get a clear picture very quickly. So that's what we're after with these KPIs across the board.
And just to piggyback on Andy's comment and Lieutenant Besner's comment, we do want to make these reports public. So that was one of the questions I asked the chief is, can we take this KPI report and put it somewhere? Maybe it's our website. I don't know where we're going to do that. That we'll have to kind of come up with. But the plan is to put it out to the public so that Andy's point kind of comes to fruition, that everybody can kind of see, you know, here's how things are going with our police department. Is crime up in our area? Is it down? Are they challenged with this, that, or the other thing? Like this, that's what we're trying to get across here, to kind of increase that transparency out to the public.
Yeah, and Commissioner, like you said, I think this is a good start. This is the first month. We can certainly add to it, refine it, and make it more transparent, like you said. But I think it's definitely a work in progress, but it's a good start.
So then the fun part for everyone else then becomes, well, we want to do this for all the departments. So obviously the police are not going to be the same metrics as public works or admin or so on and so forth. So that's where we would have to kind of sit down with the heads of each one of those departments and basically say, well, what do you do? The police, we kind of went after to be the guinea pig, if you will, to just kind of work through it with them. So we had an example for people, but now that we have an example and everybody can kind of see the concepts, what we would ask is just apply those concepts to your department. And Tanya and I will kind of circle back with everybody to kind of shepherd you through the process, so you're not a fish out of water, if you will, trying to do this on your own. But we want to try and get some of those metrics together. I guess the question I'd have for the rest of the board is, who is that population? I mean, I think Public Works is pretty obvious, fire's pretty obvious, admin's pretty obvious. Do we want to go beyond that? And if we do, where do we want to go?
In my mind, it's everywhere there's an organizational boundary. So, I mean, if we look at Public Works, we have our highway crew, our sewer crew. I think each of those units have their own metrics of like, hey, if we have, you know, a bunch of sewer mains going out, that doesn't affect the highway crew the same way. I mean, I know there's lines crossed sometimes, things like that. So it's to me, it's about what, wherever it makes sense to where we would feel pressure in an organizational unit. And if it's the highway team, or if it's, you know, the administrative staff, or whatever. It's how can we measure, the impact of like major events or like see warning signs sooner rather than later so that we're acting proactively and not reactively.
Yeah, and to build on Andy's comment, I mean, one that jumps out at me for admin is delinquency on like our sewer, our trash bills, those kind of things. Right now, we don't really get that until like we got a bunch of people down here saying, I got notices and I'm in collections. Like it would be nice to kind of see where those trends are going before we get to that point so we could start addressing them ahead of time.
Yes, I think some of that I would say would probably be in collaboration between the liaisons and the department heads, say like where does it make sense to draw lines around what we're measuring and that sort of thing. So I don't think I'm not going to dictate. I don't think we just need to work with all of you guys to figure out how best to do the measuring. But I think this is a great guinea pig. So thanks to our police liaisons for getting us going on that. Did we want to move on to the police coverage at community days? Did we skipped over that, right?
Yeah. So this is something that we talked about a while back, where Chief Winchester was kind of explaining how even though that the Community Days event isn't a Cumru Township event, it's in Cumru Township, but it's not a Cumru Township event, nor is it a Governor Mifflin School District event. It's held by an independent private entity that kind of organizes the whole thing for the folks that live in Greater Governor Mifflin. Since it's in Cumru Township, we have been the one that's been policing it exclusively, even though it's not our event. So kind of what we discussed was, well, can we have the police liaisons go out to the other Greater Governor Mifflin entities, Kenhurst, Moton, Brecknock, Shillington, and ask them if they're willing to help so that our folks aren't working so much overtime. Because, in speaking with the chief, I think a lot of the folks just kind of, they come to, despised maybe is a strong word, but they don't like that week a whole lot because they know that they're not going to get a whole lot of rest in those weeks. So, the ask is basically, will you help? So I actually talked to Reading this morning. I talked to the mayor. If you're wondering why I talked to Reading Police is Kenhurst. So we said, hey, since you guys cover Kenhurst, would you be willing to help? So he is talking to their police chief. And they will circle back with us in terms of their willingness. In addition to policing Kenhurst, they have a lot of folks from the 18th Ward that come and frequent the event as well. The 18th Ward is the area kind of like where the Mercedes dealership is and that part of Reading that's down there. It's very close to Community Day, so a lot of folks come to this event. So it was kind of twofold, my sell to him basically to say, hey, we could use the help and your folks and Kenhurst both use this. So he's considering it. He'll circle back, but that's kind of the ask to both Tanya and Leisha. If you can reach out to the other entities, that would be Shillington, Moton, and Brecknock. However you decide you want to do that and however you want to chop it up is up to the two of you. But that's kind of the ask. Can they just help out?
Yeah, so I missed your date. I was going to piggyback along with you.
Well, I actually pulled it up because I originally was going to go and talk to council next week.
Oh, okay, because I have for like 28th or something.
Yeah, I was talking to the mayor about something else, so we just talked about it, and he's going to work on that.
Okay. So
Yes, we can
however
certainly do
Tanya
that.
wants to work it out,
Yeah, we'll.
if you want to
we'll
go
work on it.
together or just split it up.
Yeah, we'll work on it. Yep,
Oh, okay.
definitely.
When I talked to Patty and Peter about this, just reviewing the agenda, one of the things that came up was we wanted to make clear that this was something that was endorsed by the board and that our liaisons weren't just showing up or reaching out to these other municipalities as rogue members of the board saying like, hey, do we need to do some sort of like authorization or formal endorsement?
No, there doesn't need to be a motion or anything formal, but if everybody on the board just wants to provide their opinion for the minutes and for the public record, that would be acceptable.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it is too. It's a huge event. Cumru doesn't have to pick up the slack for everybody. Everybody can chip in. Everybody enjoys the event.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's in the spirit of community days, community policing, community involvement and, yeah, people from all over, it's, people from all over the county come to this event. So I think it's a great idea.
And I think when Tanya and I were on our tour, didn't you say it was really pretty strenuous on the police department that day because it takes so many people, so much staff?
Yes, Commissioner. Just so you know, I did do the schedule for this year, and normally for community days, excuse me, we block out that week. So it's around the 4th of July. It's a summertime event. However, for the police officers of Cumru Township, they're not allowed to take vacation for that week. And this year, I believe it's from June 26th until July 4th, I believe. And I actually had to deny 2 vacation requests just because of the amount of officers and resources we need to dedicate to community days to make sure that it's effective. I don't want to talk about the specific tactics or operations or how we staff it, because like you said, that's certainly this discussion will help that, but it is definitely has become a strain on Cumru Township after it moved to the intermediate school. Yes.
One of the questions for Lieutenant Besner that the mayor asked me today is when would you like / need to know back from them if they're willing to help? Do you kind of have a timeline?
I think anytime in the next couple of months would be fine. I would like to have a plan in place, definitely, probably around the springtime, heading into the summer. I think that's a reasonable amount of time. But like I said, that's certainly up to the board and Chief Winchester.
I said April.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay, moving on. I think we covered the monthly report, the fire station construction. So we're bouncing back into fire. Unless there's anything else to cover there.
Fire, yeah. On C.
Yep.
Chief wanted this to be on, and he apologized he couldn't be here today. He would like the board to consider authorizing the fire chief to extend conditional offers of employment to 2 firefighters from the current certified civil service list. He wanted to remind that these were budgeted positions, and it does take a while, thus the conditional, for them to have all the different checks and for the physicals and all the stuff that goes into getting them on board. So he was hoping to, not wait a whole nother month to get that process started.
So I'll make a motion to extend a conditional offer to the 2 firefighters who are currently certified under the civil service list.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying no. Okay. Moving on to administration. Yeah, just a reminder, the Codes Department report will no longer be a part of our regular monthly agenda. That will be posted online. Do we have an update on the ordinance codification?
Actually, Kelsey gotten contact to 3 providers of municipal codes. 2 of them look good to me. 1, not so much. The next step for us is to actually meet with them and explore exactly what they'll do for us and what the cost will be. Kelsey did get some general costs, but I think we need to get a little more detail.
Yeah, so just to chime in, the entity that seemed like it was really the only sort of game in town at this point is a company called General Code. And they did provide us with a written proposal that has some general information. It's not a contract, just a proposal. And the price that they quoted was $29,995. And that would cover a kickoff meeting, an organizational analysis for the board's review to look at how everything would be organized in the code, a draft manuscript of the code, and an editorial and legal analysis of it, a draft of the code, and then publishing the code both in print and online. as well as providing the board with an ordinance for adoption of the code. And then they said, I think, yeah, they could do it in approximately 18 months. And of course, that upfront cost is going to be, you know, a much higher cost than if we would hire them for their services moving forward to sort of update the code on an annual basis based on what ordinances the board passes within, you know, a year span of time or 2 year span of time.
And is that 18 months that long because it's been so long since it's been touched?
Yeah, they have a lot to go through. And that's the reason the cost is so high as well.
Well, that's great. I'm glad we're getting movement there. Peter, do you want to update us on the manager ordinance?
I'm sorry, Peter, before you start today, the meeting that you talked about, has that been scheduled already or no? Okay, thank you.
The present manager ordinance is 63 years old and really needs to be revised for your new manager. Basically, I'll go through this if you would like. First of all, the old code provided for a manager to work at the pleasure of the board, and the law no longer supports that. The contract or the term for manager now is the period from one election to another. You get a new board, they are in a position to extend a contract or not extend a contract, but it's 2 years. It's not indefinitely as it was. That language has been taken here from the first class township code. Qualifications, I expanded that. You had a bachelor's degree in governmental administration. I expanded that to political science with experience as a manager, assistant manager, department head. That was not part of it. I've increased the number of years experience from 3 to 5 for an undergraduate degree, master's degree, same language. I've increased the experience factor from 1 year to 3 years with a master's degree. The manager's bond, it was $5,000 63 years ago. I said not less than 1 million now. The previous manager had a $7 million bond. In terms of the manager's requirements, manager shall supervise and be responsible for the activities of all township departments. Manager shall hire, fire, and discipline all employees subject to civil service regulations, labor agreements, laws or regulations that could apply. And it will no longer require action by the board, except that the manager is required to report to the board anything in this section that's done from meeting to meeting. Finally, I didn't change anything in the relationship between the Board of Commissioners and the manager. Finally, the section is acting manager during an illness or the absence of a manager. And I made that change so that if it's temporary, the duties of the manager can be performed during the absence or disability of the person. It could be a person can be assigned from the staff, recommended by the manager and approved by the board. But if the manager's absent is not temporary, the board may appoint a senior staff member as acting manager or may appoint an interim manager until the manager's position is filled. This is the kind of ordinance that when you recruit a new manager, that's the first thing they will look at. If you recall our discussion, that was the first thing I asked to see. There are the changes.
Kelsey, anything you had to add there?
No. Peter did send me a draft of what his proposal was. I reviewed it. It aligns with the first class township code. I just added some, general ordinance language about repealing any other ordinances that, don't align with it, which would repeal the 1963 version that we currently have in place, and a couple of other kind of just legal provisions. But it looks good to me, and I think if the board wanted to authorize the advertisement, I would recommend that, and you could enact it at the March meeting.
Do I hear a motion to approve the proposed manager ordinance for at least for advertisement, right?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Right, man, telling you, brain's not working. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by saying no. Okay, on to some good stuff. Why don't you lead us off here, Peter?
Present ordinance requires that any promotions or hiring be done by the board. And I'd like to ask the board to appoint Mike Yost as the Superintendent of Public Works. He has been the interim Public Works Superintendent. He has 15 years of experience in Cumru Township. He served 9 years as the Assistant Superintendent. I have worked with him in the days that I've been here and I'm very impressed. He's very responsive and I think will be a very good person to head up Public Works. The salary for that job is $118,830.
Do I hear a motion to promote?
I make
Mike
a
to-
motion to promote him to supervisor.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right, moving on.
I just want to say thanks, Andy, to the board. I appreciate your confidence in me and I look forward to serving the township in my new role.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Well deserved.
The next recommendation is to promote Ben McGuire from Public Works Foreman to Public Works Assistant Superintendent. Ben has worked for 13 years for Cumru Township Public Works. He served as a foreman for 7 years, and he's highly recommended by Mike Yost. I've met with him. I think he is a very good person for that position. I think his experience is very similar to Mike's, and both Mike and Ben have a demeanor and a personality which works very well in Public Works.
Just gotta say, you think there's gonna be any other municipality that's gonna beat us on the beard game in Public Works?
I don't think that's possible.
All right, between the two of you guys, do I hear a motion to promote Ben McGuire from Public Works Foreman to Assistant Superintendent of Public Works?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, moving on.
I'd like to recommend that Katie Bagenstrauss be promoted from administrative assistant to administrative foreman in administration. She's been a very good worker. She's worked for the township for 25 years and has worked in administration for 11 years. The Teamsters agreement calls for promotion from within, and that's what this is. And she would also be a very good candidate.
Before I make a motion, I just want to comment, and I've said this publicly before. I think the staff we have in our administrative team, I think Peter has found this firsthand in the short time he's been here. We have a very small team that works very hard, and I'm happy to reward the members of the staff in the admin team. So I would move to promote Katie Bagenstrauss to administrative foreman.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I would like to, your comments are very accurate, by the way, about the administrative staff. I'd like to recommend the promotion of Paula Wetzel from Administrative Assistant Class 3 to Administrative Assistant Class 2. She's a good worker. She's been here for 6 months and has been learning. And we have to move her up because we have vacancies that need to be filled. That's what I'm trying to do now, is fill the vacancies that we have. And she is going to be a good person. And we're going to then go to the next recommendation, which fills that vacancy.
I would move to promote Paula Wenzel to Administrative Assistant Class 2.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay. And then
I would like to recommend that Brenda Castellano be conditionally hired as an administrative assistant class 1. There is some background work that still needs to be done, but she came out as the best of the 3 candidates that we interviewed.
that's Class 3, right? I get
Class 3 is the lowest
Yes.
level.
Yes. Okay. All right. Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor of authorizing conditional offer of employment to Brenda Castellano, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, moving on to planning.
Okay, this is the same old, same old. Just reaffirm the 2 plans. Basically, Hawthorne, we're still working on getting the last agreements ironed out. And the Missionary Sisters, they were waiting for their planning modules through the DEP. So they finally got those. So we're ironing the last bit out of that too. So these 2 should be moving forward, hopefully quicker than they have been. So it's just to reapprove reaffirm your plan approval for both of them based on the conditions that are stated here. You can do them together like you normally do.
Do we have any questions? Did you guys have any questions?
No.
Good. I would move to reaffirm both plan approvals for the Hawthorne Land Development Plan and the Missionary Sisters of the Precious Blood Expansion Plan.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Do I hear a motion to authorize payment of the bills for January 23rd, January 30th, February 6th, and February 13th of this year?
I motion.
Second. Tanya. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, moving on. Mike, Public Works.
Good evening. We received a total of 13 bids for the Ardmore Sewer Project. The lowest bid was submitted by Mason-Dixon Contractors in the amount of $1,076,650.52. It's our recommendation to award contract number 25 to Mason-Dixon Contractors.
I had a couple questions, just looking at the numbers, because I'm a numbers geek. When I look at the numbers here, these guys, Mason-Dixon, they're 20% lower than the number 2 on here. They're 50% lower than the average. They're 70% lower than the high bidder. And if to give a little bit of context on that, the difference between 2nd place and 11th place is 20%, but they are 20% better than the first or the 2nd person. How does that happen?
That's why we bid.
But how are they so different, I guess is what I'm getting at. Usually when we look at the bids, there's not that big of a delta.
Well, you can look at the distribution of their costs and determine that. I looked at it. You're talking about saving over $200,000
Yeah, not arguing that. I guess what I'm just getting at is like, are they really undercutting things and then we're gonna run over later? Like, why is it so different?
We were surprised at how low their bid was because the rest, as you said, that group was pretty tight and averaged around what we were expecting the cost to be. Now, Mason-Dixon did the adjoining street, Montrose, year and a half ago,
24.
in 24. And they did an excellent job and we were very satisfied with their work. They subbed out their paving to a PennDOT qualified contractor who's done a lot of work in the township, and we've been very happy with their work as well. Whether they just really wanted this job, they knew what they were dealing with Cumru Township, and that they could keep their costs low, or they just really wanted to work. They're still they stand behind their bid. Contractors have a period of time where they can withdraw their bid if, for some reason or other, they feel that they've made an error in their submission of that bid. They can't change it. They can only withdraw it. But they chose to say, we can do this job. And the way we structure our contracts, we spell out the quantities of work to be done and how it's to be done. So it's very straightforward. They can't just say, oh, we didn't include something in it. It's spelled out. You've got to do A, B, and C, and this is the amount of quantities of each that you have to do. So they're used to dealing with us. That was the same contract they had with us in 24. So they're more hungry, I guess.
I mean, my only question was going to be, do we have experience working with them in the past? And you answered that.
Yes. Yeah. We were very happy that they were the low bidder.
I noticed the difference as well. And so I was like, what's up with that? Do we know these guys? And it sounds like we do. So that's great.
Yeah.
I'll just comment too. I did get the bid documents that you sent. I reviewed them and they all looked in order to me.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like we feel good about them. So
yes,
yeah, that's good.
They're very professional.
I had a similar initial reaction, like, why are these guys so?
Okay. We wanted to make sure that they were standing behind this number, and they did. Yeah. So,
do I hear a motion to award the bid to Mason-Dixon Contractors LLC?
I'll make a motion to reward the bid to Mason-Dixon Contractors.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Back to you, Mike.
That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Goski, engineering.
Just an update on the traffic studies. We did substantially complete our traffic studies for Summit Avenue and Brook Boulevard intersection, as well as Harding Avenue. Summit Avenue and Brook Boulevard for the parking, the all-way stop control analysis for Harding Avenue and Brook Boulevard, and for Elkins Avenue. I have drafts completed. The snow did kind of affect us a little bit with parking. We wanted to evaluate a little bit of the parking situation on Summit with site distance and so forth. But Chief Winchester did forward the police safety units report, and they were very helpful. The data was very good. They did some traffic counts, which really we incorporated into our analysis, and just our preliminary findings. We are concurring with an all-way stop control at the intersection of Harding Avenue and Brook Boulevard. Also looking at installing crosswalks, stop bars, and possibly prohibiting some of the parking. That's what we want to take a look at with the snow, whether or not we need to extend no parking at that intersection. Currently, the vehicle code under section 3353 prohibits parking 30 feet within a stop sign. However, in this situation, we do have a lot of on-street parking due to the existing residential developments and commercial establishments. We may want to look at extending that parking limit to allow for a clear line of sight, even though it's going to be an all-way stop control. the motorist still needs to see the opposing vehicle so they can apply the right-of-way rule when they proceed to negotiate any turning movements through that intersection. So essentially, we'll have that finalized, and I put together a sketch and signage for the Public Works Department if the Board of Commissioners do choose to adopt an ordinance or a traffic ordinance to allow for an all-way stop control. That's substantially done, and I just wanted to just double check on the restriction of parking. On Elkins Avenue, we did take a look at, unfortunately, the snow, but we were able to take a look at Elkins Avenue from Harding Avenue to Governor Drive. Our studies are in accordance with PennDOT regulations as well as the manual and uniform traffic control devices, which is the federal highway regulations, as well as the vehicle code 75 statute. It appears that Elkins Avenue actually parking can be restricted based on the criteria and our analysis. When I finalize this report, I can go into a little bit more detail. However, it appears that a majority of the residents utilize on-street parking due to having several cars per household. This could have an impact with the residents. It's something I really would like to discuss if the commissioners do want to look at proceeding with restricting parking on both sides of the street. It does meet the warrants and the criteria. However, that's something I can go into a little bit more detail when I finalize my report. And the same with Summit. Summit was at a request for currently Summit prohibits parking on both curbside. And the police also did a report which is very nice. It was very grateful. They had some traffic data and some speed analysis, which was helpful in our study. Currently, both sides of Summit Avenue have restriction of parking. Based on our preliminary analysis, it appears that our recommendation, at least our engineering opinion, is going to remain to keep parking restricted on that road. And I understand there is a demand for parking due to the apartments, Sunset, and as well as the Shillington Commons, as well as the businesses. However, based on our geometric review with the traffic signal, with the accident data, as well as the speed and volumes, our opinion at this point is going to be keeping that restriction on Summit for both those sides. I think it's a safety concern. We do concur with the police department, also made that same analysis, and they did provide us more information that was very helpful. Accidents are a key factor in looking at parking and sight distance and so forth. But we'll have some recommendations and have those reports final. Unfortunately, with the snow, it did kind of slow us down when we wanted to take some measurements with sight distance with parked vehicles. Cars are parked at a little bit different because of the snow. Hopefully the snow will melt soon and we can have this report probably finalized within a week or so. And I can submit that to the manager and for the board to review and for discussion at the next commissioners meetings. If anybody has any questions, I can answer.
Kelsey,
I don't have any questions. I was just going to say thanks for all the work on that, Joe. And then I guess we'll look forward to that at the next meeting.
I thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Kelsey, do you have an update for us on the Sunset Apartments?
Yeah, just briefly. I did have some correspondence with Mark Wenrick from the Cumru Township Fire Department, as well as Terry Noggle, who is the township's commercial building inspector, and William Frymore, who you know is the codes enforcement official for the township. I asked if we could go to Sunset and kind of do any inspections in order to try to get to the bottom of some of these habitability issues or safety issues. So Mark did go out and do a fire inspection at the property about a week or two ago. He did send me the results, and the routine fire safety inspection results show that they passed pretty much all of the requirements from an inspection perspective, except for their fire pump is not working at the correct capacity. And unfortunately, Mark indicated that that's not really necessarily their issue. They've been having water pressure supply issues there since like 2018, which the fire department thought was resolved. But apparently it began again in 2024, but the fire department was never notified. So the fire department is now working on that issue and is going to get a water company involved to conduct some testing. They're also requiring that since it has 30 days to repair any fire pump issues that may be internal. So that's on the fire side of things. As far as any correspondence with HUD, I did reach out to them via their online complaint system, as well as calling them and emailing them. Surprisingly, I haven't heard back. Shocking. So I'm going to try to stay on top of it, but unfortunately right now that's the only update I can give you.
Thank you. Patty, did you want to update us on the correspondence?
Yes, this is the first thing. Did I do this before? Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The blighted committee, they have the steps, and the first step is that they give a notice of blight. So that was for 303 Summit Avenue. Then once they get the notice, then they are given several opportunities to correct the blight, several over months. And at the bitter end, if they don't, then action will be taken. So this is only the first step to say, hey, let's do something. The next one is just the renewal application. This is over at the landfill. They have a landfill gas to energy plant. So they have to get renew their application every year. So that's just an FYI. And the last one is also just an FYI. Herbine and Company has been acquired by Cherry Beckett, and they had sent their engagement letter, which is the same engagement letter that we did have with Herbine. This is just an FYI that they are no longer Herbine, that they've been bought out by Cherry Beckett. So that's easy.
Thank you.
Andy, before we jump into commissioners, spoke with Kelsey earlier, and there were two items that I wanted to introduce onto the board or onto this agenda here. One of them is already kind of on here regarding the municipal authority. That's listed under the reminders towards the end of the agenda. Do we need to amend the agenda to just kind of move it up and discuss it further, or are we okay with what we have?
I would just say if we're gonna talk about any sort of dissolution or termination of the authority, we should motion to amend the agenda to add a discussion on termination or dissolution, just so that it's for the minutes and for the public's knowledge that the agenda was amended to reflect that discussion.
Okay, so then I guess the first thing I would make a motion to amend the agenda to discuss the terminate or the dissolution rather of the municipal authority. Do I need to say anything else? Okay,
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
So the agenda item here that we were speaking of, as you can see on your agenda as it exists today, there's 4 open slots for the municipal authority. When those slots came open a couple weeks back, I had asked Kelsey, well, why do we need a municipal authority? Like, is this something that we have to have for whatever reason? And I don't want to speak for you. Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. Municipal authorities, there's an act called the Municipal Authorities Act, which you must abide by if you have a municipal authority. The township created the sewer authority back in, what did we find out? 1950, 58. And the sewer, obviously the township doesn't have a water authority. It has a sewer authority because we don't have water. But the sewer authority was created as sort of a recommending body to oversee all of the sewer projects in the township and make recommendations to this board, which ultimately has final approval of expenditures of funds on maintenance of the infrastructure and approval of sewer projects. So at this point, right now, as it stands, there are no members of the municipal authority. There's one member. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one member. You're the last man standing. So the way it works in this township particularly is the authority doesn't own any of the infrastructure. It may own some contracts and it may own some projects. Technically, we would have to look into what, if anything, the municipal authority is a party to as far as contractual obligations. Ultimately, though, the infrastructure, the maintenance of it, the operation of it is all this board's responsibility and the township's overall responsibility. So under the the Municipal Authorities Act, there is a mechanism by which you can convey all of those projects back to the township and dissolve the municipal authority. And so I think Commissioner Miller's question was, can we do that? And how do we do that? And is it feasible to do it? Is it recommended to do it? It's really up to the board. In my opinion, the municipal authority right now meets quarterly. And so a lot of those meetings are just updates from the engineer who spoke tonight, Jeff Skinner from Atlas, just updating the authority board on where they're at in the engineering process, what projects are, coming up, what we're looking at in 5 to 10 years, and sort of doing some planning. So theoretically, you could hold those meetings on a quarterly basis in front of this board instead of having the authority board. We would just need to go through the process of officially dissolving that board under the Municipalities Authority Act.
One of the,
Okay. Just want to throw this out there for additional information. My understanding is there's other options too. I'm not the lawyer, but I could throw it out there. My understanding. You could also make the municipal authority inactive for right now. There is a 50-year, I don't know if you call it contract or whatever it is. They had to renew it in 2008 because it was 50 years, and it is in place now till 2058. So every 50 years you would have to renew your resolution, or I don't know what the word is, but you'd have to renew it. And I know that the purpose before, I guess it was inactive at some point and then it was active again. And I know our previous solicitor, his recommendation was to have the authority because it had the ability to raise bonds if necessary. So that's a reason to kind of have it in your back pocket. It could be inactive, but it is good till 2058. So if you didn't want to dissolve it completely right now, you might want to just kind of hedge your bet, so to speak. But
I mean, are we aware of any time the municipal authority has issued a bond?
well, you have a lot of projects coming up that are going to require some infrastructure. So I don't know. If it
No,
were
I
me, I might
understand that.
decide
But
having
get
an
to the
option.
forthcoming projects.
Right, might err on having that option available.
I have a question of the solicitor. Could the board name themselves as the authority, or could they name employees as the authority?
Yes, the board could appoint members of the board to the authority, and the board could appoint anybody from the community to that board, sure.
And the little exposure I've had, I think Chelsea is absolutely right. The engineer made a presentation. It's not an operating authority. I mean, when it was first set up, it was written like an operating authority, but it's not now. And I don't, outside of the financial thing, which is a real thing, I mean, they could be responsible for, you could be responsible for raising funds for sewer system, for example. You don't get the grant, you're probably, if you want to do it, you're probably going to have to borrow money because you don't have enough to fund that. So maybe keeping the authority, but naming yourselves and some employees on it would do fine. It would be better than hunting some people that probably don't know that much about sewer systems anyway.
With regard to issuing a bond, like what would preclude the township from issuing a bond
Same thing I was
in
gonna
lieu of
ask.
the municipal authority?
Nothing. I mean,
So there's nothing really gained by an alternate entity being able to issue the bond other than it's
Well-
more particular to their.
the only thing you gain is that it's not counted against the township's indebtedness. But I don't think you have much indebtedness right now, do you? I haven't looked at that.
The firehouse.
Oh,
So that's about
well, it
16.
would not be part of the township's indebtedness.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that it gives flexibility with respect to bonds, like Patty mentioned. I'm not sure. I don't know. Additionally, if you do decide to terminate the authority, we got to make sure that any bond is fully paid and discharged, anything issued and outstanding, which I don't know, unfortunately, off the top of my head, if we have any issued and outstanding. Not currently. Okay.
I guess my. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one of the other things I asked Kelsey about is, could we just run these updates through the planning commission? The planning commission, like, could they kind of oversee this kind of as part of their charter?
Yeah, I think that that blurs the lines too much. I think you either need to either keep it inactive and separate or terminate it. And if you keep it inactive, you could certainly appoint members of this board to that authority board. Or, other people in the community that you'd want to see on the board.
Public Works Director, for example, manager, people that know something about the sewer system.
Yeah, and I know, when Bob was here, I don't think he was on the board, but he certainly was an attendee at every meeting.
I guess one of the things I think about is no matter what, over the last, as long as I've been around, this board has overseen budgeting the expenses for these large projects, as we see here tonight, $7 million project that is coming here, not to the municipal authority to issue a bond. And I think I can't recall a single time we've gotten a memo or some report from the municipal authority the entire time I've been on the board of commissioners. Not one time do I recall.
I'm not sure if you were on yet, but they always look at what's coming up, what's going on, and they do make recommendations as far as if any of the sewer rates have to be changed. So I do know that wasn't too long ago, but I'm not sure if you were on the board yet.
Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't want to suggest that the municipal authority is like doing nothing and just like having cupcakes and punch. I think I'm sure that there's discussions being had, but I think at the end of the day, it's coming here anyway. And it's like administrative overhead that is it. My question is it necessary? And like, is there something maybe an efficiency lost by having this indirection of things going there and before they come here when really, I guess maybe to clarify, an example is this big interceptor project. If there's a lot of this information going over to this alternate authority, I would rather that come to us directly and hear that, because we're the ones who have to make these judgment calls and budget for this kind of stuff. I don't know.
I really think that it would make sense to keep it in case at some point in time you want to use it. Otherwise, you have to start over, do the ordinances, and why do that if you can just keep what you have? Maybe it's dormant right now, but you may in the future want to use it.
So I guess
That's fine with me too.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on Patty's comment. So I guess, and I'm looking to Peter and Patty on this. Like, I mean, do you make it inactive? Do you appoint members of this board or the staff? Like, what would your recommendation be?
I would appoint, 5 members, I believe. 4. I would say you would appoint the Public Works Director. You could appoint the Assistant Director or Superintendent, someone from the manager, whoever that might be. I would I would keep it. Not that it has to be active, but why start over again if you end up needing it?
That's fine. If it's something more in-house, I'm more for that. I guess my only concern or question there is appointing somebody like our superintendent, Mike, or the manager, is that fall outside of their role and responsibilities, or is this like an overtime thing?
No, it wouldn't add anything really.
As long as that's the case, that makes sense to me.
So what would you think about if you go manager, assistant manager, and then superintendent and assistant for public works? That's your 4.
That'd be fine.
Anyone else have any thoughts?
Works for me. That work for you, Mike?
Yep, works for me.
Is this something we need to vote on then, I guess?
I mean, you don't have to do it at this meeting tonight. You can, table it until March until you get names of the people you want to appoint to those vacant positions and make the formal motions in
Well, I
March,
think-
or you could do it now. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we kind of said here. It would be the Mike and Ben, and then Patty and Peter if I'm putting people to it.
Along with the existing member?
That's
who's
correct.
With us tonight?
I don't think Peter.
Absolutely, yeah, the manager and the assistant manager, the superintendent of public works and the assistant of public works.
I'm fine with moving forward with that now. Do we want to wait?
I don't,
Yeah, so we don't want to appoint Peter.
I don't, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know what's gonna change between now and March. I mean, if everybody's agreeing to that, like, why not we just make the motion and be done with it and move on?
Yeah,
with
just
it?
minus Peter and.
Yeah, we won't use the names, to Peter's point. We'll use the positions.
One of your own members.
I think we should just use the title, not the name.
Yeah.
But I think to Peter's point, it's a 5-year appointment, so like, do we need to specify a specific person?
Probably, yes.
Because there's like specific term limits, and it's like if the manager leaves, like what happens with their term?
Would we just auto replace the manager then, or do we need to go?
I would use names. If once Peter is done being the interim manager, then
Can
you can
resign.
replace Peter. He can resign, and you can replace his term with the incoming manager.
Right.
Does that work for you, Peter? All right, then I guess I would make a motion then to have Patty, Peter, Mike, and Ben join the municipal authority under the 5-year term as Kelsey outlined.
Well, second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, moving on.
I'm sorry, I have one more. There was
sorry.
one to add to the agenda. So I would also make a motion to amend the agenda to include a discussion on the trash and sewer bill issue that Kristen raised to us via email earlier this week. And I'll just stop there, maybe.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so that's added to the agenda.
Kristen, do you mind giving a little background on this situation? Hate to put you on the spot.
So last week, I don't remember which day it was, earlier in the week, we had a call from the Shillington Post Office informing us that the postcards that we sent out for the sewer billing, they had a bunch, and they did not specify a number at the post office, that they were working to piece back together because the perforations had separated. We then had a stack of 84 of them come back to us on Friday in the mail with just a half. The half that has the billing information, we don't know if maybe the half that has the address got to the residents, because we did also have a number of people call in saying that they only got part of their bill. Now, as we're getting these back, we started actually today, the first 84, we put little notices in an envelope with the bill saying we received this back from the post office. As they were working on that, the admin staff, they did look to see if any of them were paid, and none of them had been paid yet. So that tells me that this batch is not the people who have called in to make the payment over the phone. Today, we received another 25 in the mail. So it is a problem that people are not getting their bills. As we get them back, we are, like I said, we're mailing them to the individuals. That's about what I got.
It's pretty clear that it's a post office problem. I've looked at the cards and they don't pull apart very easily. And this is, I understand, the first time that this has happened. So we're going to make a contact with the post office to see what we can do. I understand that all this stuff is processed in Harrisburg, but we're going to start locally and raise heck because it is a problem. Trying to change something now it would be very difficult. We have a process and programs and equipment, and it's not going to be easy to do that. We can always look at what other communities do that are different, that works, but you can't do that on short term.
Yeah, to Peter's point, spot on. I mean, this would be like some sort of multi-layered approach. I guess the one thing that I would, I don't know if challenge or question is, and this predates you, Peter, so you wouldn't know about this. We've had issues with our billing literally annually. We've never been able to put our finger on exactly what the problem is. This might, in fact, be the problem. I heard Andy kind of say that to Kelsey over here as it was getting explained. So maybe this is just the first time the post office actually told us that this happened. So maybe this has been happening. I'm speculating. I have no idea that, but we haven't had a good answer to what our problems have been literally every year. And it'll probably happen this year when it comes time for, what is it, June, July timeframe. The trash bills are due. There's always a couple hundred, literally, I'm not exaggerating, every year that show up and say, I never got my bill.
Well, and one of the admin staff had reached out to the vendor that does the postcards, and we are inquiring if there's anything we can do to strengthen them so that this issue doesn't happen again. Obviously, it is a little different than not getting to the people, but like you said, maybe there's some truth in that too. But some ideas I was thinking of is either just spacing out the perforations that it doesn't make it as easy to rip, or just putting like a line, like a cut here line, and making people cut, separate them themselves once it gets there. Obviously there's other ideas too with like, mailing letter size things, but that's like Peter was saying, our equipment right now isn't set up for that. So that might be a long-term answer, but a right now issue or a right now answer, we need to figure something out with the postcards.
Yeah, and I think that's a great lead in. I mean, you're spot on. That's exactly what we need to do. But just kind of being me, I mean, I reached out to all of our, I'll call it peer municipalities. So the larger municipalities that surround the city of Reading and the city of Reading. So I asked Reading, Muhlenberg, Spring, Exeter, Wyomissing, and I think that's everybody. Maybe I forgot somebody, but first question was, what do you guys use? Do you guys use a postcard like this? The universal answer was no. Nobody uses a postcard. Every one of them uses a more traditional, I'll call it letter and envelope style thing that comes out, and that's how they mail it. Number two that I found for them, everyone offers e-invoicing. We're literally the only one that's not doing that right now. E-invoicing is the ability for a resident to go in, give their email address, and then their invoice shows up in their email, as opposed to getting a postcard. They all actually additionally said they are pushing more and more people to that, because obviously it doesn't cost them to email an invoice, but it does cost them to mail an invoice. So they're trying to get more and more residents to do that actively right now. Next point, they all offer some sort of online payment. Every one of them. We're the only one that doesn't do that. And why missing actually goes as far as not only having an online payment, but they have a direct debit option. So you can go in there and sign up for direct debit, and it will just pull money out of your account every quarter or month or whatever it is, depending on how the bills are set up. And then all you get is the invoice that Andy has pulled up on his computer that basically says, this is what we pulled out. And that's all it is. It shows up in email. So there is no mailing, and everything is done electronically for all these other municipalities.
We should be looking towards all those things, but right now we can't. We don't have enough staff to do that. Everyone is right up to here with work. But it is definitely something that needs to be looked at and changed.
I agree. And what I did is talk to Mark, because Mark has an initiative that he's going on right now where he's looking at new websites for the township and enhanced capabilities in terms of outreach and so on and so forth. So maybe I'll turn it over to Mark and see what he kind of found so far.
Yeah, we met today with our first vendor that we wanted to talk to, is a company called Civic Plus. And we have another one on Thursday that we're doing, and the staff, Patty and Peter and Kristen, joined me to just kind of learn about their offering, you know, what services and what features and functionality they have that you know come with the design. You know, the base thing is we need to redesign our website, we need to make it better, we need to have better outreach with our clientele. But beyond that, they also offer online bill payment that they'll handle setting up the third party. They'll work. There's a number of ways to do it. So we're starting to talk about this and move forward. And I'll have this on the agenda for the next board meeting in March. We'll meet with this other vendor. We'll look at their offering and make a recommendation to the board. And this will be part of, it might be something that we do right away, but it also might be something that, like Peter's saying, we might have to take little bites of the elephant here and, kind of look at this as something for, later this year, or when we send out the bills, later. But we're looking into it.
And then just to add into what Mark is saying, I reached out to Why Missing and said, can you show us your stuff, if you will, basically. And they're going to get back to us with all of their different contacts, what software they use, so on and so forth, so that we can start, incorporating that. If what Mark's talking about doesn't necessarily tick all those boxes, we could potentially do a combination of that particular, I'll call it a website developer, and then these external third parties. So to answer Peter's concerns about the workload, well, maybe some of that workload just shifts externally potentially. That's just a discussion point. TBD if we actually do that or not, but something else to consider here. We got plenty to do, right? So I guess I don't know that there's anything to talk about other than that, unless anyone else has any thoughts or questions. I don't think there's anything to motion or anything like that at this point. It's probably just maybe an action item that we can throw on because Mark's already doing it anyway. Okay, that's all I got.
So we're good. I guess let's move on to the zoning hearing board updates. Patty, did you want to update us there?
Okay, the first one is a continuance. That it was going to be continued till February, but now it's going to be continued through March. They also had some lawyer shifting and stuff, so till everyone gets everything together. So that one, the application 837 is going to be continued through March. The next one is 838. This is it's Pro Burco, but it's Prospectus Associates Incorporated for 602 Harding Avenue. They're seeking a special exception to operate a group home for 2 adults with developmental disabilities. The residential dwelling is located in the HR, which is the high density residential district. The zoning officer, he had previously denied the zoning permit application. That's what the new zoning solicitor would like to see, that they tried that, then they get denied. And the reason is it's not a use by right at this time. So they have to come back and get a special exception.
Can I comment on that? And I look at this solicitor on this. Seems to me that there is a state law which says you cannot prohibit a group home based on the zoning. I'm not 100% sure, but that resonates in my mind as a state requirement.
Yeah, there's a lot of case law on group homes and what is considered exclusionary zoning for group homes. And they've won a lot of cases based on being excluded from the entirety of a township or a municipality or certain portions of it, or having restrictions that could never possibly be met in order to obtain a variance or a special exception or a conditional use. So you're right. There's yes. The courts have spoken on that at length. So I can tell you that I know the zoning hearing board solicitor pretty well, and he's very well aware.
Okay. The next one is application 839. This is Brubaker, 1622 Wyomissing Road. They are seeking some variances from various sections here. They are also seeking a special exception. They want the private dog kennel on the property. You might have heard about this before when Ms. Young had come on various occasions, because on one side is the poultry barn and on this side is the kennel. So this is the kennel she was talking about. The parcel is split between Cumru and Brecknock. It is 78 in Cumru. It is taxed in Cumru. The owners had gone to Brecknock and had received approval for the kennel. And how we found out was there was residents had made a complaint to our codes department. And when the codes department went out there, they were surprised to see the kennel was there because, like I said, it's taxed in Cumru. So that's why they have to come to Cumru. Now, all of these, well, the last one was not, they kind of snuck in after the planning commission, but number 3, they did discuss things at the planning commission, which is why we wanted to do this, so it would go through all the channels. And the Brecknock did have some conditions on this, and the planning commission seemed to feel that Brecknock had addressed pretty many of the conditions at that time. So the reason we're bringing up here is if you feel one way or the other, or you want to have someone go and testify one way or the other at the zoning hearing board, that's the only way someone can go and talk, if you authorize them to talk. So go ahead.
I have a question on, sorry, were
Yes.
you gonna move on to the
Nope,
the
go
number
ahead,
4?
but
I'm just, I wanted to ask Kelsey sort of how this shakes out with like the jurisdiction between Cumru and Brecknock. Does the percentage matter? Does where the kennel is on the parcel? Is that what matters? Like, what matters here?
So like anything in the law, there's a lot of factors that would need to be considered, a lot of gray areas. But in my opinion, and I believe in the opinion of, well, in my opinion, the applicant in this case should have came to Cumru as well as Brecknock. When I handle land use issues for private clients, if the property is split, you ask permission in both municipalities, especially since in this case, Cumru has the higher percentage of real estate in their municipality. I thought it was strange that they didn't, and that's why we requested that the codes enforcement officer and the zoning officer go out and inspect the property and then issue a notice of violation saying, hey, hold on, you built this without even seeking a zoning permit, let alone the special exception that you need to have a kennel on the property. So yes, I do believe that they should have came to Cumru. Now they are now, once they got kind of smacked for it, but I guess the question that Patty posed, which I'm also going to pose, is does the board want to take an official position on this application and send either me or send Patty or send the interim manager to that hearing to make public comment, to become a party, to cross-examine witnesses, to testify, or just to indicate a position that, you know, the board does support this or the board doesn't support this, and here's why. This board has the right to do that if it wants to.
And by supporting it, are you saying whether we support the building of the dog kennel or not? Is that the question?
Whether you support granting them a special exception for the kennel to be located on the property.
What, do we have to take a position on one side or the other to cross-examine witnesses or and things like that?
No, you don't need to take an official position. You can have someone show up and just observe and ask questions too. But ultimately, normally the board or the municipality would take a firm position one way or another once they've reviewed all the information.
I guess one final question, and maybe this is just out of curiosity, but do we know whether the kennel itself is within the bounds of Cumru Township?
So I reviewed the application, and there's an unprofessional hand drawing of the property that depicts the kennel and where it is purported to be located on the property. And it's purported to be located entirely in Brecknock, but very, very close to that line. It's not an official survey. It's not surveyed. It's not an official plan. So this is the property owner saying it's in Brecknock. So I don't know where it officially is. And that would be one of the questions that I would have. Where's your survey?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll just say, I think it sets a strange precedent to allow somebody to just skirt our rules. Like, we have these exceptions for a reason that you can apply for them. But if people are just going to say, no, I'm not even going to bother applying, damn the zoning, I'm going to build whatever the hell I want, excuse my French, that kind of sets a bad precedent if we're just like, okay, that's fine.
I have a question. What happens if we turn it down?
If we turn it down, we can't turn it down. It's the zoning hearing board makes the final decision. Yeah. If
Not granting the exception.
Correct. If the zoning hearing board doesn't grant the exception, then the applicant would have the right to appeal that decision and take it up to the Court of Common Pleas to make a final decision. If the final decision is Cumru denied your special exception, that dog kennel can't be there, ultimately we would have to continue issuing notices of violation and or file for injunctive relief to get the thing torn down. Because it has already been built, is my understanding.
I don't see the point of giving them a hard time. It's a dog kennel in an agricultural area.
I think there's been a lot of attention on this.
But
to Patty's point, like I know there's they've been here, they've sent emails, they've gone to higher level elected officials. Like this has a lot of eyes on it. I don't know where I fall in honesty to your point, Leisha. I think Andy's argument's an interesting one, that it's not necessarily about the dog kennel at this point. It's about a bigger point, if you will.
But maybe he thought because it was in Brecknock Township that was who to go to.
That's partly why I don't know if that's why I asked, like, do we have to take a stand one way or the other? I want to understand this a little better, because I know we had those folks come in here 2 months back, and they made some compelling points, but it wasn't on like in an official way, and like being able to actually adjudicate like everything, I think would be helpful for me.
So a couple of points that I'll make to try to help you with making a decision. Number one, you don't have to take any position. You can do nothing with this and let it go through the zoning hearing board, which is there, as its own independent board to protect your zoning ordinance, and to protect the health and safety and welfare of your residents. Additionally, the individuals who came here to speak, can and do have the right to go to that hearing and become a party to that hearing. And they will have the right to cross-examine, to present their own evidence and testimony, and to appeal any decision that is made that they don't like. So they themselves can protect themselves. It doesn't have to fall on the township.
Yeah, I don't see what's the point of giving them a hard
And
time.
as Ms. Frankowski said, mailings are sent to every property within 500 feet. So I do know that things were mailed out to all of the appropriate people who knew about it before.
Sometimes boards will authorize the manager or the assistant manager to simply show up at the hearing and present a letter to the zoning hearing board saying, we're not taking a position, but we really don't like the fact that you didn't come to us. And we don't want to set that precedent. You should have came to us and we're not happy with you, kind of thing. I mean, you certainly can do that instead of taking a hard position on opposing the application in its entirety or supporting it.
That's kind of the approach that I think I want to support at this point, because I don't think we have all the information. And if we are there as a party to inquire and present our position, like you said, Kelsey, that they did not follow the protocols or the procedures, and that isn't how we do business, and kind of put that position out there, I guess the zoning hearing board could consider that in their decision. It's not that we're taking a position, we're just saying you sort of skirted around the rules. But I just don't feel comfortable at this point saying yay or nay, given what we know at the moment.
Patty, when is that hearing scheduled for?
Next Tuesday, the 24th.
I mean, I think, Mark, you just summed up how I feel like pretty precisely. Like, this isn't about, to me, a dog kennel or not. Like, I don't know enough about the circumstances to know one side or the other, whose side to take in this. But I know, like, it sounds like they may have, whether they knew it or not, they should have come to us. And I think at the very least I think that letter sounds good. Like, let the zoning hearing board, like, tell the zoning hearing board, like, Board of Commissioners wants you to let them know, like, this is not cool.
And I think if we do that letter, it sets a precedence of you need to follow the rules, whether it's a dog kennel or whatever it is, but we have things in place to guardrail for that.
Lisa, are you okay with that approach?
Just, the slap on the wrist kind of letter, and don't do that again, but it's up to the zoning board. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, is that a middle ground for you?
Okay. Me personally, I mean, if I would have went to Brecknock, I would have asked them, do you think I need to ask Cumru? I would have inquired a little more also. But then again, if they're in their agriculture area, it seems like people want to move into the lovely agriculture area, and then they get all pissed when the residents exercise their rights to do the things that they can do with the way it's zoned. Then maybe people shouldn't move into those areas if they don't want an animal beside them.
But I think that's the thing for me on this is that this is a special exception. It's not just like something you're not just allowed to put up a commercial dog kennel in this area. And
right.
That's why they needed to go through the right channels. And that's why I just feel like we need to say to the zoning hearing board, like, let them know, like, this, you can't do this. Like, if it's by right with that zoning, do whatever you want. I'm not gonna take an opinion on it. But if this is a special exception, it's because we put that in there for a reason, and people just need to do that and go through the process of applying. If they come and they say, like, we need an exception, okay, let's hear why.
Normally, special exceptions are granted by the governing body rather than the zoning hearing board.
That's actually conditional uses. Conditional uses come before this board, but special exceptions and variances go before the zoning hearing board. Yep.
Yes, do we need a motion to draft a letter?
Yeah, I would just say a motion to authorize the township manager to compose a letter to the zoning hearing board regarding the board's position on the application, which is simply you failed to abide by our rules, we're not happy with it. Something to that effect, which I can certainly work with Patty on.
That's
drafting.
what I was gonna say. Is that the solicitor that does it, or is that the manager that does it?
It usually comes from the manager, but I can certainly help craft the language.
I'll make a motion to do what Kelsey just said.
I'll second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. On to number 4.
Okay, and this is the last one. This, like I said, did not come before the planning commission because it only walked in the door at the last minute of the Friday after the planning commission. So this is application 840. It's JAJD Properties LTD. But if anybody's, this is Mr. Radwanski. He owns a construction business. So the property is 4119 New Holland Road. They are seeking variances from various sections. They want to store their construction equipment, so the backhoes and the diggers and all the big stuff outside and use the existing structures for storage. The problem comes in where this is this is neither a use by right, a special exception, or a conditional use. The zoning officer had sent a letter to them. So this is low density residential, and it had previously been a horse farm, and it does have an on-lot well, 3-bay barn, and various outbuildings. So the question also came up about the water because they have an on-lot well, but apparently they do not have an on-lot septic. So that was another question that was brought up. Well, if you have the water, where does it go? So, yeah. Okay. The other problem is, yeah, it is in the low density residential. So I'm not exactly sure. This is the solicitor. I'm going to ask you. Yeah. But basically, again, if they have any questions as to what should be done here, it is,
This
yeah.
is one I haven't reviewed yet because it didn't come before the planning commission meeting where
Nope.
I attended, and I didn't get anything delivered to me regarding it. So it's based on what it says, it's up to the board if the board wants to take a position with the limited information it has. When's this hearing?
Yep, it's also on the 24th.
Oh.
Because they walked in the door at the last minute and got advertised at the very, very last minute. So, yeah, by design probably.
Do we have any sort of time frame for which they have to submit an application before? I mean, I know that MPC has a time frame, but so that the planning commission can at least get eyes on these applications before it's quickly scheduled for a hearing, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right. That's what I question too, because we've been making great efforts here to, go through all the steps that the planning commission sees it and everybody, the board sees it, everybody sees it. So when something like this happens, it kind of undermines what we're trying to do.
Why did it get scheduled that quickly before the planning commission had eyes on it? Was it something that the solicitor?
Because they have a lawyer and the lawyer wanted it done.
That makes perfect
quickly.
sense to me. All right.
Is there a way that we can defer it to the following month's meeting?
Unfortunately, this board has no control over the zoning hearing board's procedures or decisions. But I would say that perhaps we should let the zoning hearing board solicitor know that the board wants a chance to look at these things and formulate an opinion, as does the planning commission, before it would get scheduled for a hearing. Obviously staying within the timeframes included in the MPC.
Right. So even if it was like even a week earlier for their deadline, that, because if it had come in the Friday before, it would have been at our meeting on the Monday, but it came in the Friday after our meeting. So the planning commission had no way to see it.
And I will say this, that despite the fact that you're only seeing this now, or if this would happen again, this board and the municipality is always automatically a party to a zoning matter. So even if you don't even know what's going on until the hearing takes place, and then all of a sudden you get complaints and you realize that a decision was made that you don't like, the board can still appeal that decision. You still have that power to appeal the decision to the Court of Common Pleas, even though you didn't take a position in the beginning or show up to the hearing or do any of that stuff. So you still have that layer of protection, just to let everybody know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know one way or the other. I'd say storing construction equipment in a low density residential area is concerning, but I think, yeah, just leave it to the zoning hearing board for now, and then we'll see what comes of it and if there's any action needed on the back end. That's my feeling. Any?
Yeah. I agree with what you said, Andy.
Just wait and see, I guess. Okay.
Can I throw in my 2 cents?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Keffer.
I brought this up actually at our last planning commission meeting, but in the course of my career, I have never, ever had a zoning application go directly to the zoning hearing board. It has always been the responsibility of the planning commission to make a recommendation to the zoning hearing board. Quite simple.
You're that in this case, the way this is flowing, it did not get an eye from the planning commission.
That's correct.
Before going to the
That's
zoning
correct.
hearing board.
It's a little sneaky.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, in light of that, like, I mean, can we just tell them, like, reschedule this and or issue us, like we were just talking about in the previous one, like issue an opinion as the board, like we feel like this wasn't done properly?
Yeah, I mean, if that's what the board wants, it can certainly issue a letter saying that the board doesn't take a position because it doesn't know anything, because the planning commission didn't even get to review it. But we reserve our right to appeal any decision that's made if we're not happy with it.
I kind of like that. I mean, it does again feel like that this is a situation where somebody's trying to go around the process, perhaps, and I think we need to let them know, like, this is not going to fly.
I agree, but I just to make sure, maybe to formalize it, we can't say you have to go to the planning commission first, correct? No, that's a question to Kelsey. I don't know.
No, you can't force them to, but what Mr. Keffer was saying is correct. Typically, the planning commission will review that zoning application at its meeting, whether or not the applicant shows up to try to convince the planning commission it's good or not. And either based on what the applicant says at the meeting or just the materials that the planning commission is given, will make a recommendation to the zoning hearing board, which will come to the township as well, so that you can see what the planning commission said and decide whether you agree with the planning commission, whether you have your own opinion, or whether you don't have a position at all.
So it sounds like the letter is really our only route at this point. Okay.
I think that's fine with me. I mean, I think let's just let them know, like, we have processes that we expect you to respect.
Like the last one, should we make a motion that we want to have a letter drawn up? And did you want to put in there possibly about considering a different timeline so that everyone can be apprised?
Do we need to split that? So do we need a motion to authorize the letter?
Yeah, just the same thing that we discussed, a letter authorizing the township manager to present a letter at the zoning hearing regarding the discussion we just had with respect to timeline.
Sure. So moved.
I'll second.
Sorry. Thank you, Kelsey. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying no. Okay. And then the second one was making sure everyone's apprised of what's hitting the deck as it pertains to zoning hearing applications, making sure the planning commission gets eyes on it. That's what you were saying, Kelsey. Is that or Patty? Oh,
We're good. You authorize the letter. We know what the letter is going to say.
okay. So that I thought what Patty was saying was that you wanted to like formally review that here. We can't do that,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Okay. All right. Moving on. I think we have an executive session.
Really fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna quick issue the reminders before we break for executive session. We have a zoning hearing board meeting, as we've just discussed, February 24th at 6 p.m. Board of Commissioners meeting in March. We have two. The regular meeting is March 17th at 7 p.m. And then we have a fifth Tuesday meeting, March 31st at 7 p.m. Then we have a planning commission meeting March 2nd at 6 p.m. Then, as discussed previously, we have 4 positions vacant on the municipal authority. But yeah, well, oh, that's correct. No, that's no longer accurate. So with that, we're going to break for executive session.
All right, for the meeting minutes, there was an executive session regarding 2 personnel items, 1 administration and 1 public works, and there will be no action coming out of executive session.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.